The sound came through the mesh door like a bullet through fog muffled, but clear enough to tear through something vital. You're not my real dad anyway. Heaven's cooler. Greg didn't drop the spatula. He didn't even flinch. He stood there, smoke curling around him from the Weber grill, the scent of charred meat suddenly sickening. His left hand was still gloved, a pair of tongs clenched tight around a half-cooked patty. His right hand reached for the beer bottle, more out of ritual than thirst. And he just stood. He was listening. It was Tyler, 17, the boy he'd helped raise since kindergarten, the boy he'd sat with through his ADHD diagnosis, the one he taught to drive in the empty lot behind the Home Depot, the one whose science fair project he'd practically built from scratch while Tyler slept. That boy, saying like Greg was just some guy who brought the wrong soda to a barbecue. Greg didn't storm in. He didn't say, "After all I've done for you?" He didn't yank the door open or throw the burger in the trash like some melodramatically. He just waited for the timer on the grill to beep, flipped the patty once more, then carried the plate inside. Tyler was on the couch, thumbs twitching on his controller, heads a halfway off his ear, a Red Bull sweating beside him. He looked up, barely. Greg handed him the plate. Dinner. Tyler grabbed it without looking. Thanks. Greg paused, let the moment hang. Then, with a voice so calm and almost sounded amused, he said, "Got it." He turned and walked down the hall to his office, closed the door and logged into the bursar's portal. His name still sat there, primary financial guarantor. He clicked the red withdraw pledge button. It asked for confirmation. He clicked again. That was it. 2 years of savings and 1 second of clicking gone. Then to Craig's list. He scrolled past the junk. Looked new photos of the Toyota Camry parked out front. The one he'd been letting Tyler use for school and work, since Greg didn't need it anymore. Listed it under market. No negotiation. Needed it gone. Listen, quick break. We set a goal to hit 10K subscribers. So tap subscribe if you're liking these wild stories of betrayal. Now, let's get back to the madness. Back in the kitchen, his wife giggled over something on her phone. She hadn't heard the comment. Or maybe she had and just didn't care. Lately, she'd been light, flirty with strangers, especially Kevin. Greg opened a cabinet, pulled out a pad, and started a list. Not emotional. Practical. Line items. Like a man planning a move. Or a mission. Cancel tuition. Sell Camry. Remove as emergency contact. Pack up Tyler's childhood photos. Lawyer. Revisit custody agreement. That last one took a moment. Not because he hesitated. He didn't. But because something about it felt like a surgical incision. Deliberate. Cold. Necessary. Later that night, he stood in the hallway outside Tyler's room. Light from the TV flickered under the door. Explosion from some game. Probably the same one Greg had bought last Christmas. Echoed faintly. Inside, a boy who used to run to him after nightmares now called another man cooler. Maybe he was. Maybe Kevin had better jokes. Loser rules. A motorcycle and no expectations. But Kevin hadn't sat in that ER waiting room when Tyler broke his arm. Hadn't driven him to math tutoring 3 days a week. Hadn't spent hours helping him fill out FAFSA forms. Or coached him through job interviews with mock questions and folded resumes. Greg didn't feel rage. Not even sadness. What he felt was a kind of clicking into place. Like a gear that had been stuck for too long, suddenly snapping back into motion. He walked into the garage and stared at the shelves of Tyler's sports gear, half of it. Never used. He grabbed a duffel bag and started sorting. Cleats, pads, participation trophies with Greg's sign at the bottom of the certificates. He wasn't sure what to do with them yet, but they weren't staying in the house. By midnight, the Camry had a buyer lined up for the morning. The tuition email had been confirmed. In Tyler? Still in his world of screens and headsets. Blissfully unaware that the ground under him had started shifting. Greg lay in bed beside his wife, who was still scrolling. She laughed again at something on her phone. A high, careless sound. He turned to her and asked, "Still talking to Kevin?" She blinked. "What? That's not—" "Don't be paranoid, Greg. It's just work stuff. He smiled barely. Sure, work. Then turned off the light. At night, Greg slept like a man with nothing left to explain. The garage had always been chaos. Old camping gear they never used. Bins of Tyler's outgrown clothes. Boxes labeled Christmas lights that still held tangled strings Greg hadn't bothered to test since 2017. But now, Greg approached it like a crime scene technician. Gloved, deliberate, precise. He wasn't just cleaning. He was dividing. What was his, bought with his paycheck, assembled by his hands, maintained with his. Tools went into the keep corner. What was theirs, or worse, hers, went on the other side. A growing stack marked unsorted. Though he already knew where it would end up, he found a baseball glove under a box of old board games. He held it up, Tyler's first. They tossed it around in the yard almost every Sunday when he was 10. Before the headphones, before the mood swings, before Kevin. Greg turned the glove over once, then set it aside, not with the keeps. Spring cleaning. His wife asked from the doorway, holding a mug with her chipped nail polish, and that. 2 sweet tones she used when trying to pretend she gave a damn. Greg looked up, sweat streaking down his neck. Just tidying things up, he said with a smile. She lingered like she wanted to ask more, but she didn't. She never really did unless it involved her. Instead, she turned and walked off, her flip-flop smacking lazily against the hardwood. The moment her back was turned, his smile vanished. The camera was gone by noon. Sold to a man with cash and no questions. He handed over the keys without ceremony. Didn't even watch it leave the driveway. Just turned back to his list, added a check mark. He stopped making breakfast. No more scrambled eggs before Tyler's school. No more grabbing protein bars or nagging him to take the damn vitamins. The boy didn't seem to notice. He was too buried in TikToks and texts from a girl Greg had only heard about once. But his absence showed up in odd ways. Tyler missed soccer practice because he forgot his cleats. They used to sit by the door Greg had always made sure. He had to Uber to school twice in 1 week because no one reminded him to check the fuel. Gauge. He handed in an English essay late because Greg hadn't gone over the draft like he used. 2. And Greg said nothing. No lectures. No warnings. No disappointment. Just distance. Tyler didn't connect the dots yet, but his mother did. She noticed the garbage wasn't taken out until it overflowed. The fridge didn't magically refill anymore. She noticed her own laundry piled higher than usual because Greg had stopped doing the shared. Load. The silence wasn't loud. It was surgical. One night, as they stood in the kitchen waiting for the kettle to boil, she broke the silence. Greg, she said, stirring her tea even though the water wasn't hot yet. Is something wrong? He didn't look up from his crossword. Not at all. That response didn't land the way she expected. No argument. No grumbling. No clipped sarcasm. Just calm. Neutral detachment. It was terrifying. He didn't look angry. He looked done. That night she checked their shared bank app. His name was still there. But the linked cards had vanished. Auto payments were disabled. She opened the drawer where they kept paperwork. His file folders were gone. Just hers remained. And Tyler's. The next morning she tried again. Is this about what Tyler said? Greg shrugged on his jacket. You'll have to be more specific. She blinked. He didn't mean it. Greg paused in the doorway. Doesn't matter. He said it. Greg, come on. He's a teenager. They say stupid things. He opened the door. And adults live with the consequences. Then he left. She stood there, holding her mug like it was the only thing grounding her. Her son had thrown one careless jab. And now the man who held their lives together with quiet constancy was slipping away in plain sight. But the worst part wasn't that he was angry. The worst part was that he wasn't. Monday morning, 8:02 a.m. Greg logged into the tuition portal again. Not to double check. Not to second guess. Just to confirm the firewall was up. Status. Access denied. Financial hold initiated. A single click had frozen 4 years of plans. The admissions counselor's smiling email signature meant nothing now. Tyler wouldn't be attending orientation. Not on Greg's dime. He didn't gloat. He didn't text a warning. He simply logged out, closed a laptop, and started the next phase. Tuesday, the Camry, once a teenage freedom machine, now a symbol of entitlement, was officially no longer his. Greg met the buyer at the DMV. No sentiment, no stories about first road trips or bonding moments. Just a signature, a handshake, and a blank expression. He walked home, alone, in the same hoodie he'd worn when he taught Tyler how to change. It's oil in the driveway. That hoodie would go next. Wednesday came with a draft email, already prepared. Subject: financial sponsorship withdrawal. Please be advised that I, Greg Simmons, hereby withdraw as financial guarantor for Tyler Madison, effective immediately. All questions should be directed to Ms. Elaine Madison, biological parent and now sole guardian. He paused only once before hitting send. Not because he hesitated, but because, for a split second, he pictured Tyler's face. Reading that email on his school account. Surprise first, then confusion, then panic. The realization that safety nets had ropes, and Greg had just pulled his hand away. He boxed up the memorabilia next. Trophies, plaques, camp medals, participation ribbons. All the artificial markers of a childhood someone else stopped showing up for. So Greg had stepped in. Baseball, robotics, even a weird spelling bee trophy that Tyler had gotten second place in, Greg had framed. The certificate anyway. Back then, it had meant everything. Now it all went into a box labeled Tyler. No speech. No teary goodbyes. Just hallway delivery like an unpaid Amazon package. He didn't even wait to see if they moved it. The last task was administrative, but not symbolic. His lawyer, Cynthia, answered on the second ring. Greg, she said, what's going on? I want to relinquish custody. He said flatly, everything. I want it on paper. A pause. She knew the history, knew the years he fought be part of that kid's life after the divorce, knew the emails, the court hearings, the therapy sessions, the mediation, the Christmas is spent negotiating schedules like NATO treaties. Are you sure? She asked quietly. I'm done parenting someone who thinks I'm optional. Another pause. I'll start the paperwork. You'll need to sign before the end of the month. I'll do it today, he said. Scan and send. He hung up, opened the hallway closet, and pulled out a folder labeled legal. In it, custody agreements, tax records, Tyler's school registration, even his Social Security. Form, the one Greg had filled out when Tyler's mom forgot the deadline. It would all go back to her now. Every document, every responsibility, every phone call from the school nurse, every tantrum, every misassignment, every future screw-up. Greg was erasing himself from the picture, not because he hated the kid, not even because he hated her, but because he had finally, coldly, calculated the cost and decided he'd been overdrafting for years on a love that was never reciprocated, just expected. That night, the house was quiet again. Tyler played Xbox with his mic on loud. She scrolled Instagram, laughing at some meme her sister sent. Neither of them noticed the box in the hall. Greg sat on the porch, same place as the burger night, a beer in hand, a half smile on his lips. Not relief, not victory, just clarity. He wasn't walking away in anger. He was walking away like a man leaving a job he never got paid for, locking the door behind. Him, not to trap anyone inside, but to finally stop coming back. Fragile. Can we talk? Greg didn't answer right away. Just opened the door and stepped aside. Tyler sat at the kitchen table like he used to, but everything was different now. No snacks on the counter. No papers with his name on them. Just sterile order. Greg sat across from him, arms folded. Tyler looked down. I got the email. Greg waited. I didn't mean what I said. About you not being my real dad. You said Kevin was cooler. Tyler cringed. I was angry. I was being dumb. Greg nodded slowly. You said it. Your mom backed it. And I listened. Tyler's voice cracked. Can't you just help? Just this one thing? Greg leaned in. Let me ask you something, Tyler. You ever loan a tool to someone who never brings it back? They act like it's theirs. Then the one time you say no, you're the villain. Tyler blinked. I guess. Yeah, that's how this feels. Tyler's hands balled into fists. So you're just gonna let me fail? No, Greg said calmly. I'm gonna let you learn. Tyler stood up too fast, knocking his chair back. Whatever, man. Greg didn't flinch. Don't call me man. Either I'm your dad or I'm not. Tyler didn't respond. He left without slamming the door, which somehow felt louder than if he had. Greg stood in the empty kitchen, staring at the chair still on its side. He didn't feel good. He didn't feel triumphant. But he did feel finished. The breakdown happened in the worst possible place, an intersection outside a strip mall. The kind of sun-bleached corner where time stood still and nothing good ever happened. Her camera sputtered, jerked forward once, then died completely. No warning lights, no last gasp of engine life, just silence and heat. She hit the wheel hard, then again the A.C. stopped first, followed by the dashboard display. She checked her phone, 7% battery, no charger. She sat there, blinking at the cars honking behind her, feeling heat crawl up her spine, like sweat-coated guilt. The tow truck took 2 hours. The driver was polite, but couldn't stop staring at the caved and didn't above her. Well, that's new. He asked. She didn't answer. Back home. Well, not really hers anymore. The silence was different. Not peaceful. Not quiet. Vacant. Kevin wasn't there. Not just physically. His things were gone. Too. The guitar with 2 broken strings. The PlayStation. His cheap cologne. All vanished. On the kitchen table, a crumpled sheet of lined paper in all caps. Can't do this. Not built for this. Sorry. No punctuation. Just that. She read it 3 times before sitting down and noticing the smell. The fridge was full of rotting groceries. No one had cleaned. No one had shopped. No one had planned anything for weeks. Tyler was upstairs, his door shut. His room had become a crypt of teenage misery, blackout curtains, flickering screens. Ramen cups stacked like monuments to inertia. He hadn't showered in days. Barely spoke. He didn't ask about college anymore. And she didn't have answers. That night, after pouring herself a glass of wine, and then pouring out untouched, she finally picked up the phone. She called Greg. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. 3rd time. Greg, please. I know I've screwed this up. We've screwed this up. I need to talk. Not about money. Just please. She hung up before the beep. The next morning, she drove to his house. Or tried to. The gate didn't open. The keypad blinked red. She tried the old code. Then the old code. Nothing. She got out and buzzed the intercom. Nothing. No voice. No sound. Just the robotic. Access denied flashing once before the screen went dark again. She stood there in silence, feeling something terrifying settle over her. Not rage. Not regret. Weightlessness. As if the floor she'd walked on for over a decade had been quietly removed and now she was just floating in place. She looked around and realized everything was still. The lawn was perfectly trimmed. The mailbox freshly painted. The hydrangeas blooming just like always. The only thing missing was Greg. It hit her then. Not all at once, but like a slow, spreading bruise. The stability she assumed would always be there had never belonged to her. It had belonged to Greg. He had built the scaffolding that held her entire life together. She just never noticed because she was too busy measuring coolness. And now, that scaffolding was gone. She got back in the car. It took 3 tries to start. The check engine light blinked like it was mocking her. Back home, Tyler was still in bed. She knocked. No response. She cracked the door. He was staring at the ceiling. Earbuds in. Face pale. She didn't say anything. She just watched her son. This boy who once looked at Greg with awe, who now wouldn't look at anyone, who had built a house of cards on top of fantasy called Kevin and was now buried under the rubble. She sat on the floor outside his door for an hour. She didn't cry. There wasn't enough left for tears. Silence. Her own now, and Greg's, and the vacuum where father used to be. She hadn't asked her parents for money in over a decade, not since she and Greg had started building a life where they didn't need to. But that morning, she sat at their kitchen table, her mother sipping coffee with passive disappointment, her father not even pretending to hide his skepticism, and swallowed every last drop of pride. "I just need help getting Tyler's student loan approved," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "He's not eligible on his own, and I've already been denied." Her mother put her mug down gently. "Where's Greg in all this?" She didn't answer. Her father leaned forward. "We didn't co-sign for you. Why would we do it for your mistake?" The word stung. Mistake. As if Tyler was some accounting error. "I'm not asking for the money outright. Just a signature," she pleaded, but they'd already decided. The answer was no. Polite, final, and laced with just enough told you so to make her want to scream. She left humiliated. The echo of her father's muttered should have stayed with the man who actually gave. A damn, clanging in her ears like a drop wrench. Back home, the silence had shifted. No longer peaceful or empty. Now it was saturated, thick with shame, the kind that wraps around your spine and tightens when you try to sleep. Tyler had sold his Xbox. He hadn't asked, but noticed the empty spot under the TV where it used to sit. He pawned his electric scooter, too. She caught him biking to work one morning. Jeans too short, his old backpack barely zipped. The same kid who used Uber 5 blocks now pedaled up in July heat. She watched him through the blinds as he locked his bike to a rusted grocery rack in the parking lot. Her heart cracked, and then cracked again when she saw the next-door neighbor watching too, shaking his head slightly. Before returning to polishing his truck, people noticed. The weekend getaway stopped. No more wine tasting in the hills with her girlfriends. No more DoorDash meals arriving like magic at 7:30. Just frozen burritos and coupons from the local paper. The pantry got quieter. The fridge colder. It wasn't just about money. It was about image. And now even that was gone. She waited 3 more days before breaking. 3 days of walking past Tyler's closed-door hearing for scraping plates at dinner, instead of voices. 3 days of waiting for someone else to fix it. Greg, the bank, her parents, even Kevin, who hadn't texted once since leaving. Finally, she typed it. "We need to talk. Please." She didn't send it right away. She stared at it, watching the little blinking cursor mock her hesitation. Then she hit send and waited. Phone in hand. Bring her on. Notifications unmuted. Greg read it 6 minutes later. She saw the read. Receipt. That was it. No dots. No reply. Just read. And then gone. Archived. Like an email marked promotions not even worth deleting. She stared at the screen for an hour. It refreshed. Closed the app. Reopened it. Nothing. Not even a sorry can help. At night, the lights flickered. She hadn't paid the bill on time. And she thought for the first time in her adult life, this is what it looks like when someone lets you fall and does nothing to stop it because they already caught you for 12 years straight. And finally realized you never once looked down to notice. It was almost midnight when the doorbell rang sharp and desperate, like someone pressing it with the whole weight of their shame. Greg had been in bed, not sleeping, just reading the same paragraph of a paperback for the 4th time, his mind daft-drifting. When the bell rang again, followed by a frantic knock, he didn't flinch. He closed the book, set it down gently, and walked to the front door. He didn't need to check the camera feed. He already knew who it was. When he opened it, she was standing there like a statue about to break, hair wet from tears or rain. He couldn't tell. Mascara smeared under both eyes like war paint she didn't mean to wear. Her arms clutched something tight against her chest, a small folder, edges worn and buckled from her grip. She didn't speak right away. He said nothing. "Please," she whispered. Her voice cracked like glass under a heel. "I messed up." Still, he said nothing. "I was stupid. God, I was so stupid." He didn't mean it. Tyler didn't mean what he said. Greg tilted his head calmly. But he did say it. He stepped forward, just one pace, eyes begging for a lifeline. Greg, he's just a kid. He didn't. He doesn't know. You were always the one who ate. I was, Greg said flatly. That's the point. Her lips trembled. He's been a mess. He doesn't talk to me. He's barely eating. He keeps asking for you, but he won't admit it. I don't know what to do anymore. Greg nodded slowly. Not cruelly, not smugly, just a quiet gesture that said, yes, I understand, but that doesn't change a thing. I believe you, he said. I believe all of it, but I'm done being someone's fallback plan. I'm not the emergency number after you burn through every other contact. She swallowed hard, then extended the folder like it was some sacred offering. I found these in a drawer. His old drawings. You're in every one. Remember? The one where you're wearing a cape. Her voice broke into a wet laugh. He thought you were a superhero. He said that. He said it. Greg looked at the folder, then looked at her, then stepped back. I already gave him everything I had. Her eyes widened. Greg, please. He's still a kid. He doesn't know how to fix this. Greg leaned in, his voice low and steady. Then maybe now he'll learn what it costs when you torch the bridge before you're old. Enough to swim. She didn't move. Neither did he. The air between them was thick with ghosts. Christmas mornings, scrapiness, science projects, late-night fevers, lost teeth. All the invisible labor of fatherhood she had quietly repackaged as optional the moment. Someone with tattoos and a motorcycle rolled into their lives. I'm not angry at him anymore, Greg said, but I'm not coming back to be the duct tape for your regrets. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, still holding the folder in the other. I just thought, maybe if you saw these. I've seen them, he said, and gently closed the door. No slam. No insult. No. First finality. She stood there for a long time after the lock clicked, the folder hanging useless at her side, a storm of years and choices and consequences swirling in her chest. She left without knocking again. And in the morning, when Greg opened the door for the paper, the folder was still on the porch, damp, creased, and exactly where she dropped it. It was early evening when Greg saw the figure in his yard, tall, lanky, shoulders hunched, like a boy trying to fold himself into a smaller version of who he used to be. Tyler didn't knock. He didn't call. He just stood near the porch, hands jammed deep in his hoodie, staring at the hydrangeas. Greg had planted that spring. Greg stepped outside, slow and measured. No smile, no scowl, just presence. For a long moment, Tyler said nothing. His eyes flicked the ground, then the porch steps, then finally up to meet Greg's. Briefly, I didn't mean it, he said. The voice was quieter than Greg remembered. Less of the cocky teenager, more the kid who used to ask him to check under the bed for monsters. About the dad thing, Tyler added. Greg leaned against the railing, arms crossed. Doesn't matter if you meant it. You said it. Tyler opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked older somehow, but not in a good way. Like life had given him a crash course in consequences, without warning him there'd be. A test. I was angry. Tyler finally muttered. Greg's voice was calm. Anger just turns the volume up. Doesn't change the song. Tyler nodded, wiping at his nose with the sleeve of his hoodie. You were more of a dad than anyone, he said. Greg watched him. No flash of satisfaction. No softening. Just stillness. I know, he said. Tyler blinked. You do. I always knew, Greg replied. But I was waiting to see if you would. Tyler looked down again, swallowing hard. His hands fidgeted inside the hoodie pocket, like they were trying to wring out all the regret at once. I get it now, he said. Kevin was fake, like cool for 5 minutes, and then just gone. And Mom, she doesn't know how to fix stuff. Not like you did. I didn't. Greg held up a hand. Don't finish that sentence unless you're sure you understand what you're apologizing for. Tyler hesitated. Greg walked inside for a moment and came back with a sealed envelope. He held it out. Tyler stared at it. What is it? Greg placed it in his hand. A letter. You can read it whenever you want. Just don't open it thinking it's a pass. Tyler took it carefully, like it might break. Is it bad? Greg's mouth curled into something between a smirk and a scar. It's honest. Tyler's throat bobbed as he nodded. I want to make it right. He said, I don't know how. You start by understanding this. Greg said, trust isn't automatic. Neither is love. He said something that burned a bridge. It's not gone forever, but you have to rebuild it. I'm not going to carry you across. Tyler nodded again, slower this time. I'll read it, he said. I'll figure it out. Greg opened the door behind him. Good. Tyler turned to leave, then paused. Do I come back? Greg's response was quiet. That's up to you. Just don't come back expecting the same welcome. Tyler nodded once more, then walked off, the envelope clutched tightly in his hand, like it was a last connection to a father. He finally realized he had. And Greg, he watched him go, not with bitterness, not with hope, just with the measured distance of a man who had already given everything, and now waited to see what someone else would finally earn. The acceptance never came. Not again. The college had moved on, filled Tyler's spot with someone else's son. Someone whose tuition hadn't bounced. Someone who hadn't told the man paying for it that he wasn't a real dad. No appeals. No second chances. No miracles. Tyler took a job at the gas station off Route 9. Night shifts mostly. Wore the same faded blue polo, name tag crooked, hair longer now. He pumped gas, stocked cigarettes, scrubbed gum off the sidewalks. Occasionally he ran the register with a weary half-smile and a kind of haunted politeness. Only hard lessons can carve into a face. Greg saw him now and then, sometimes driving past, sometimes filling up. They never spoke. Tyler would give a slight nod, not eager, not ashamed, just respectful, like he knew there was a border now between them. No longer father and son. More like former nations who once shared a flag, but now only shared memory. He never walked back up to the door, but every few weeks Greg would find something under the porch mat, always the same size, always folded twice. Drawings, sometimes pencil sketches, other times ink, once watercolor messy, but vibrant. They were always a people. Sometimes it was a father and son fishing. Once it was a house, not unlike Greg's, with two shadows sitting on the porch. One had a beard. The other wore a baseball cap backward. Another time it was just a single figure walking into the horizon. Greg never mentioned them, never responded. He just opened the mat, took the paper. He headed into the top drawer of his desk, where a folder now lived, labeled, simply, Tyler. He didn't frame them, didn't hang them on the fridge, but he didn't throw them away either, because they weren't apologies. They were echoes. He leafed through them sometimes on quiet nights, beer in hand, porch light buzzing above, the air still and soft like a page that had finally been turned. They weren't forgiveness. Not from him. Not for Tyler. They were reminders. That love, once dismissed, doesn't always come back in the same shape. That absence isn't the same as punishment, but it hurts more. That being the fallback too many times turns you into the floor. Greg had rebuilt his peace. Slowly, quietly, no grand proclamations, just boundaries, clean drawers, a phone that didn't ring. Sometimes people asked if you missed a kid. Greg never answered, just smiled politely, then went home, unlocked the drawer, loved the edge of a sketch, and reminded himself. Some lessons don't need to be yelled. They just need to be felt, deeply, repeatedly, in silence. Thank you for taking the time to read this story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, like, and share in the comments. Remember, history is a witness to the past, a light of truth, a living memory, a teacher of life, a messenger of antiquity, and see you soon.